Yeah, they don't keep much company. Hermia's dream. Yeah, snake's what we're looking for. When Helena freaks out, oh spite, oh hell, that's she responding to.
Demetrius and Lysander professing.
Yeah, that's everybody else was that'll count, but that's the one was Demetrius professed his love for her, and that's how she responded. She's a complicated character. How does Pyramus and Thisbe end? Oh, they die. Yeah, okay. I guess that counts as suicide. What is Bottom's dream? Yeah, good play. Okay. So our anti-comic person down there, did you hate it? Okay, good. So are we reading it as like a nice, fun, light comedy, lots of rhymes? It's a pretty quick read. I mean, if you have to read one of these plays all in one, yeah.
Is there a certain way that we should read Shakespeare to ourselves? Like,
Well, I mean, it's
in order to keep up with all the characters and kind of imagine it, they're hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to give you scaffolding for it. That's why I'm not just throwing you the play. That's why we're talking about it first, so you can kind of get an idea, and then we'll go through it now, and hopefully, as you ideally, you will be learning how to read more clearly. The first thing that you have to do, and this is the big thing that we're going to hit on today, is slow down. It's very, every line is packed, and that's why it was underhanded of me to assign a whole play on the first play. That was, if you guys hate me, then that's okay. All right. So we'll just start with the opening lines. The opening lines, with a couple of notable exceptions in Shakespeare plays, are packed and very, very, very important, as it turns out, and poorly footnoted in this case. Can I get a volunteer? I know I've got a lot of theater people in here, so I'm expecting some marvelous stuff here. I want someone to read Theseus's opening statement. Participation.
Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon, but oh, methinks, how slow this old moon one wings. She lingers my desires, like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering out a young man's reverie.
Marvelous. Okay. So it seems like, what's the gist of this?
Can't wait to get married.
Can't wait to get married. Like, what's some things that we can say that we learn about Theseus? I'll put that one up. One is, can't wait to get married. Is that about it? Nothing else? Okay. We'll slow down just a smudge. So I think probably we're not paying enough attention. All right. So one of the things going on is the he can't wait. So this brings off the theme or concept of time. I'll write that on the board because it's important. All right. So he's proposing a very specific concept of time. Let's look at it again, read to ourselves, and our nuptial hour draws on apace. So what's the first word? Now. So that's sort of so there's something called a now right here. We'll call this now, and then there's something else, right? What's the thing that sort of in that first sentence that balances out the now, that he contrasts with the now?
Hour.
One more word to it though. Nuptial hour. All right, and then so this is what we have in between, right? So this is a very specific sort of concept of time. Does anyone, I keep asking this, but has anyone ever been a kid?
No.
Okay. When I was a kid, I remember when I was in car rides, there was something called Now, and then there was the mythical End of the Journey. And it was interminable. I mean, I think that kids actually experience time different, because I just remember like being in a car forever, and it was like 15 minutes. Also, that sodas were huge. But, so there's different ways of approaching time. So now I think that I'm just kind of, like it's less punctuated in my day. There's things that I kind of avoid, but there's a certain way of this, and I think it's very childish, of just looking at the next treat and sort of staging your life, treat to treat to treat, right? And then so his perception of this, at least in the first lines, is that it's a long time, because presumably he wants the nuptial hour to happen, right? So he's like a kid waiting for Christmas. Mm-hmm. Fair enough? Okay. 4 happy days bring in another moon. So, but he's kind of upbeat about it, right? And he's sort of being stoic. What's do you know what tone is? So like, what would be some tone words we could use for the first 2.5 lines? Happy.
Fair.
Fair. I'll add one, optimistic. Okay. And I also think sort of philosophical, right? So just picture, like your buddy comes up to you. Your buddy. Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon. So this is, does it seem a little affected to you? Do you think that's just because it's Shakespeare? Theseus is that guy. All right, so he comes off just waxing philosophical about the nature of time and our nuptial hour and how we need to embrace things. But once he starts talking about the nuptial hour, something switches, right? Because he's like, 4 happy days bring in another moon. But then we've got what word there after that? But. And incidentally, just as a side note, he's wrong, right? It's not 4 days till the nuptial hour, right? It's only 1. You can catch him with these sometimes.
Why is it wrong?
Well, he's wrong. He says 4 days till our nuptial hour, and then the play takes place in one night.
But was that something that Shakespeare overlooked, or probably not?
I think he probably didn't care.
He didn't care.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be lost in the forest for 3 days.
Yeah, but there's not. I mean, it's clearly one night.
Yeah.
So.
But wasn't Hippolyta echoed by saying, yeah, but it's 4 nights?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a discrepancy. How many children did Lady Macbeth have? We're not supposed to pursue these questions. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of
I know. I saw it. That's what occurred to me too. Is that should I just have it?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll come back.
All right, bracket off. Yes.
Could it be that numbers are being used as a literary technique instead of just numbers?
It's possible. If we were going to do a paper, I would say maybe to put that in the paper. But
well,
yeah.
isn't 4 the number for fate, doesn't it?
Well, my numerology is dusty.
Are they using that back then at all, or is it just throwing out a number? I mean, was it significant, do you think?
This will be the only time we discuss it. So I don't think it's very significant. I think it's just a.
Well, I just meant like to him personally.
Maybe. Maybe, and I just told you that the first lines in particular are really important. So Ben Jonson famously said that Shakespeare never blotted a line, which means that he never corrected anything. But that's probably not true. All right.
Okay. It reminds me of in The Taming of the Shrew at the very end when he finally tames Kate. He is the master of her, whatever. So,
She's into it. It's cool.
I mean, yeah, she is into it. He's like, oh my God, you're such a fair maiden. Like, I've never seen like more of a lively blush on anyone's cheeks. And like, he's looking at a man, and she's like, oh my God, sweet maiden, you're so good. Like, you're so cute. My husband's so right. And then like he just switches on a dime, and like he's like, oh yes, it's day. Oh yes, it's night. And she has to agree with him. And it makes me think because Hippolyta was just an Amazon queen who he just tamed with a sword. So then he's like tamed her in the same sense that that Kate was just tamed. So then when he says 4 as like a literary device, like God, it feels like 4 more days. Then she's like, yeah, you're right, 4 more nights.
Okay. I'm feeling I like that's going to be my explanation from here on out. Yes, sir.
It would be like at the end of the semester, I say 4 score and 7 years ago, I said this, even though I really only said it a semester ago.
All right, so just kind of so sort of a little bit like it's we'll get there forever. So like if you lie to the kids and you say that, and they're like, are we there yet? And you're like, we'll be there in 4 days. It's going to be that long that you're going to be sitting in the car needing to pee. Okay. And that was a long aside. All right. So kind of tone words in the first few lines. So my to get these derived. Happy. The nuptial hour draws on a pace. What does a pace mean?
Rapid.
Yeah, at a good clip. So he's actually at this point, he can't wait to get married, but he's enjoying himself. But then he talks about the another moon coming in, the presiding deity of Midsummer Night's Dream. You will find. And then something happens. But what does "but" usually mean in a sentence? Yeah, so it's a but. It's like, I like you, but, that's and then just another fun fact that you'll find a lot in Shakespeare is the O. The O signals instantly altered perspective, conception of well, it's a registration of a desirous feeling. So it's like, blah, 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 oh, right? So, and then he says, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. So we get a shift here, right? What are we shifting to now after the but? So instead of a pace and another, presumably new moon, we're dwelling on something else.
Now it's very slow.
Yeah. So the old moon is slow and old and wanes and lingers. What does lingers my desires mean?
Holds them up.
Yeah. So all of a sudden we're going from kind of bopping along, drawing on a pace, to a registration of desire. So he's going along, and then it sort of occurs to him that this 4 days between now and the nuptial hour is actually a problem. And now he's, like the longing desire. Now he's the Christmas kid, right? No? Sure. Okay. So so what I'm thinking is happening here is when he thinks of another moon, and then so think about again, this is why we gotta go slow. So if you were to assign the moon a gender, which Theseus does, what would you assign? Yeah, that's usually what we think, right? And and we learned a little bit about Theseus, right? What's his history with women?
Pretty bad.
Yeah, it's serial monogamy, right? That's what they call it. Okay, so another moon. He's getting the idea of another moon, right? He's getting excited, and the old moon's still here. So this tells us something cyclical maybe about Theseus's way of looking at things. I don't know. I think that this might develop later, but and then one of these great moments, when she lingers my desires like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering out a young man's revenue. Now ignore the footnote here. This is stupid. Right, so and more reputable editions, which I didn't make you pay for because it's more expensive, they will tell you that what he's doing, what he's comparing it to, is waiting for his inheritance from a dying stepdame or dowager. And who would his stepdame be that he was waiting to die? It's Medea, the sorceress, and this literally happened to him. He had to wait for her to die, and she kept trying to kill him. So it was really a pain in the butt. Mommy issues, just right here. So, but he's comparing the fulfillment of his desires to his stepmom dying. So what kind of guy does that? So let's just so we can say, oh well, it was Medea. But Medea has her own personal tragedy. You know, she got totally screwed over too. So what kind of guy is Theseus?
Virtuous.
Virtuous?
He's like the most ridiculous thing ever.
You're in the minority here, man. Yeah. Well, no, but yeah,
Appears
put it out there.
virtuous in the play.
Well, it's almost like he's doing him too much justice in the play. He doesn't seem as big of a miscreant as he actually is, because his history is pretty full of ridiculousness.
Yeah. Yeah. So and it goes into it a little bit like we find out when the fairies are arguing that Oberon had slept with Hippolyta and Titania had slept with Theseus, right? And some other people too. So they're so this is just 6 lines, and but now that we've chewed on it, now let's go through and think of what we learned about Theseus from just the first 6 lines. All right, I'll get us started. Has a tendency to, as I said, wax philosophical, but becomes impulsive when his ode becomes engaged. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely the sender of his own comedy or tragedy or whatever. So he's this kind of this comical pontificating pedant, and but he becomes a little kid as soon as he sees a cookie, you know. Well, I did that not too long ago. It was really embarrassing. Somebody had a cookie, and I was thinking some deep philosophical, earth-shattering thought, and then I just saw the cookie, and then my pre-quotable impulse was, "Gimme!" And I was just like, I was a 2-year-old, and I just grabbed the cookie, and it was really, yeah.
Well, is that really a fair analysis of Theseus, though? I mean, wouldn't it be fair to say that anyone would be excited when it's such a big event like your wedding day coming up? Wouldn't everyone be excited about that and kind of be in the same shoes as him, or is it different because he's had lots of?
Well, we only have one person's perspective. I mean, I was married once, and I didn't really look forward to it that much. But I suppose it's natural. I mean, are we going to give Theseus credit for wanting to get to the nuptial hour?
I always fantasize when weddings for the beer and the food.
There's easier ways to get
And there's easier ways to get there. You hate to be yeah, I mean, I think that but what we'll see when we go and do this to Hippolyta's line is that his perspective is not necessarily the universal one of the couple. Okay, so I also have that he's kind of inconstant and fickle, which ties to that, right? And then the comparing the fulfillment of desire with waiting for his stepmother to die, I think it's a little bit psychotic. I mean, you might think that, but you say it, and then and say it not only like he's confessing some deep truth, but just like it's a truth that everybody knows. That's just his simile. Just as the sun comes up in the morning, we're waiting for our mothers to die so we can get our money and party. All right.
I would say that it captures how fickle he is, really, because I mean his affections change so radically, and in his story he does eventually break up with Hippolyta and get with somebody else, and then their kid, and all that happens.
Yeah. But even just in the play, I mean, he's not like a man of consistency, right?
Right.
I mean, he kind of flip-flops all over the place. I mean, it's sort of his fault this whole thing happens. And then it's his fault that it has a happy ending because he's just that, oh, whatever guy, you know. But I think that you could also say everything that we just said about Theseus, we can also say about the play. So we're going to see all these things happen, not just from Theseus, but the play playing with all these things. Yes, sir?
I felt like it was changing a lot, and at any one time he was whatever the play needed him to be.
Yeah, sort of duping the machine, which is I just coined duping the machine. All right. We're going to go through the whole play like this. No, but we are going to go through Hippolyta's almost as tortuously. Can I get in a Hippolyta? Hippolyta, if you hear me.
"4 days will quickly steep themselves in night. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time. And then the moon, like a silver bow, new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities."
Excellent. So now we've got some other stuff going on here, right? So his is, oh, I can't wait, it's going to be so long before we get married, and she's like, what? Yeah, it's like so it's just so the comparison I think is the kid waiting for Christmas versus the kid trying to put off the end of vacation, or us trying to put off the end of vacation, or me trying to put off the end of the holiday, and just like it comes too quick, right? So we know that the Shakespeare plays with this a lot. We all know that in the non-scientific sense, the relativity of time is that it flies when you're having fun, and it takes forever when you're bored, right? So but paradoxically, when you want the thing away, it goes really fast. Like when you have finals and finals there, unless you haven't studied it. Well, that's a bad example because there's a deep ambivalence about finals. But anyway, she's like, it'll happen soon enough. Damn it.
Maybe she's saying that because she was kind of kidnapped from the Amazon, and so she's kind of indifferent. Maybe. So she's like,
maybe even not just indifferent. Maybe like
upset.
Maybe because she's an Amazon and they have that whole women empowerment thing to the extreme, and kind of seeing him act as the woman is supposed to act is kind of.
Oh, so it's kind of like, oh, I like this. So it's just like man up, man. Oh, I like that. I hadn't thought of that. That's going to have to go in the register. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this was the time of Elizabeth I, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a commentary on women in power.
Possibly, but let's go a little bit further, because I think that there's an alternate take that we have to take into account at least. And so then that moon again. So this is just a weird freaking image. And then the moon, like to a silver bow, new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. So like the moon, like to a silver bow.
Well, Athena is the goddess of the moon because she's
Artemis, right?
Artemis,
yeah.
Artemis would go off the moon and she was
Good.
Wasn't she a forever virgin?
Yeah. But Hippolyta was supposed to be too. Yes, sir.
She talking about crescent by chance? Or being the month being the time where you see crescent?
So, but what's the problem with that? That's the first thing that I thought of, but why isn't that not right? Yeah, because they're waiting for the new moon in 4 days. So unless their moon behaves differently than mine does. I don't know, does it? Wouldn't that be cool if it just like the moon just disappeared and then there was no moon and then there was a full moon? That would make life make so much more sense.
You tell me the beginning of the month, the moon's not crescent?
Well, no, but for a new moon. Yeah, so a new moon would have to almost be full, right?
Well, because it says bring in another moon?
Yeah. So they're waiting for this one to wane, or maybe not. What is a new moon?
Is when the moon is not.
Yeah.
The new moon's gone.
Yeah.
So you're right. So it's a crescent moon too. Excellent. I did that on purpose because I wanted to. Because I know that you feel bad that you missed the first 2 days of class. And, so you're in?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we got the silver bow too, but I don't think that only makes the metaphor less crazy. But still, okay. So we got the silver bow, and we've got Artemis, Cynthia. Should be called Cynthia a lot in Shakespeare. Got the bow, and Artemis is an eternal virgin. And can anybody think of a good Artemis myth that we can use so the people that aren't classically trained can get an idea of the kind of character that Artemis is?
I forget the name of the man, but
Actaeon?
maybe I can't remember. But she's bathing in the wood, and he stumbles upon her and sees her naked, and she's angry because she's supposed to be, chaste and forever virgin, so she sticks her dogs on him.
Yeah. Well, even more, cruel twist of irony. She turns him into a stag, and his hunting dogs turn to shreds. Because was he sneaking up on her, trying to tweak pictures? No. He just saw her naked. So she's a militant virgin. She's not just, I haven't got around to it yet. She's like, and not only that, she does this a lot. So like one of her priestesses, takes a vow of celibacy, gets raped, and then she kills the priestess and their kid. This is just the type of cat, this is what she's up to. But like the other thing is, if you threaten one of her people, who incidentally, who do you think's the patron goddess of the Amazons? Yes. So when you screw with her people, she'll take that mighty bow and wreak some havoc on that ass. So let's go through this again. So then the moon, like to a silver bow, new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. So what's a tone of that? So solemnities, is solemnities the way that Theseus is? What does solemnities mean, first of all?
He's solemn. It's like it's gonna be really
Like
good.
very serious. But so the marriage is a solemn ceremony that you learn about, and when they make you take the church thing when you get married, they emphasize how serious and solemn it is. But it's got a connotation to it, right? And it's not Theseus's, right? So it's kind of sort of
It's a resignation.
So what other things are solemnities? Funeral rites are other solemnities. Okay. So anyway, so I'm reading this as a threat. So just sort of like waiting, like for her avenging goddess to come down and make things right. You following me at all? All right. So it's just like, all right, as soon as you violate me, my goddess is going to avenge. So, well, all right, Crumbo. Sure, whatever, but I think there's other ways we can take this. So let's well, you go to your comment first.
Is there any general consensus on what these lines mean?
No.
In the literary community?
No, I mean it's every line of Shakespeare is a war. I mean there's probably been, well, maybe not a whole book on that exact image, but anytime you think that like you'll find my reading when you go in the literature, you'll find other reading. I think the predominant, the sort of de facto view of people that don't specialize in the play is they kind of just blow through the lines and probably think about it more or less what you did when you read through it the first time. And sort of like, they're just bantering about the wedding or whatever, But we're going to be better than that. Because the one goal that I want you to take from this class is when you see a Shakespeare movie, you can explain to your friends why it's total crap. All right. So let's can I get a theseus on the next 4 lines? Everybody's going to have to end up reading. Don't make me call on you, man. All right.
Go, Philostrate. Stir up the Athenian youth to merriments. Awake the pert and nimble spirit of mirth. Turn melancholy forth to funerals.
Yes. We don't need to turn the page yet, though. Oh, also, to the Hippolyta, sorry, before we move on, I'll forget forever. It says new bent in heaven. No. Go to the folio. Go to the facsimile of the folio. You can access it online. It says now bent in heaven, which ties to the now of the first line of Theseus. So now, so anyway. So cross it out in your it's now bent in heaven.
What a typo.
And now there really has been a book or two written on whether this is new or now. It's a theory is that it was the secretary that transcribed it from, because the one of the quarto editions has it, but the quarto edition was suspect because it was just from an actor's memory. But I think the predominant reason that it's new instead of now in most editions, all based off the Oxford, was because they decided it was the slip of a secretary's hand, and from a very banal and pedantic Shakespearean scholar in the early 20th century. Reading new worked better than now. Everything is a fight. He also punctuation. If you find punctuation interfering with your interpretation of lines, then don't let that stop you, because the punctuation is arbitrary too. Shakespeare didn't really use punctuation. Okay. So what is Theseus? So we've just got Hippolyta's image of the avenging moon about to shoot Theseus, presumably where it hurts, on his wedding night. So how does he respond?
He's like, forget that. Let's go get some merriments.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, you know what we should do instead? Party. So again, we get this sort of this figure of the party planning dads. Romeo and Juliet. I think it's Juliet's dad, right? It's all about party planning too. So awake the pert and nimble spirit of mirth, turn melancholy forth into funeral. So what does that tell us about the mood in Athens before this happens?
Didn't he just conquer Athens essentially?
Well, no, he's returning from a war.
Okay,
yeah.
so that there'd be a lot of people who were dead, a lot of funerals, everyone's in mourning.
Yeah, and so all these people died for what? So he could get married with Hippolyta. So this idea of we're going to stir up the youth to merriments, and not only the youth, but so this to me indicates that he reads Hippolyta's lines as threatening and solemn, and he's like, oh, let's get out of this attitude right now. But I mean, he doesn't seem to really care. The pale companion is not for a pomp. All right. So then we get this. Make sure I don't forget anything. All right, and then we get the famous Hippolyta. I wooed thee with my sword, and won thy love, doing thee injuries. So what do we do with that?
Is he being sarcastic or is he serious? Did he really win her love? Like, is that clear?
So there's a slight, and Shakespeare used largely what's known as the North account of the myth. He leaves the question of whether Hippolyta was kidnapped or eloped open. What's your, for instance, reading on this? I would be with the story. Is he just being playful?
Maybe he's trying to convince her that, no, I'm a man, remember? I won. So
that's why I asked you. I wanted to see that. I wanted to see how you. So it's a memorable scene from the Odyssey is Circe is changing Odysseus' men to swine, and then he asked the god what to do, and he's like, just pull out your sword and run at her. Wink, wink. And so he does, and then she falls to his feet, and another woman conquered them. So maybe something like that. So where do you think that I think, knowing from what we just went through my reading that there's 12 lines. What do I think?
I think you think this.
It's not about what I think. What do you think? I was just trying to get you to talk.
I think it's basically Halta,
Mhm.
I won you, shut up, we're gonna be happy.
So the one, do you take that so when he says, "Won thy love," so what do you think he means by love then?
Probably like respect.
Okay.
Being a good warrior, because they're warrior women, so they're not really.
Sworn to an oath of chastity, incidentally. Yeah.
He won her sex, he won her, like.
Yeah.
Subservient.
So there's different kinds of love, right? So there's like, I love my dog, I love ice cream, I love my parents, I love my children, I love my lover, or whatever, right? So I love my basketball team. So what kind of love do you think? Do you think he cares? Yeah. So, but my feeling is, when he says, "I wooed thee with my sword, and won thy love doing the injuries," I think I came in, I slaughtered your best friends, I kidnapped you at sword point, which is what happened. We just came in and had fun because we don't want you damn women with your own country. I dragged you at sword point into the ship, eventually broke your will, made it perfectly clear that you have no chance for escape. You are my prisoner. Deal with it. And then, in an even bigger twist of sensitivity, but we'll party about it. I will wed thee in another key, with pomp and triumph, and with reveling. So, I think that this little moment is the most important thing of the play, because the play deals with some crazy, dark, twisted, messed up, Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy type stuff, right? Was that right? Is it a good album?
What's that?
Kanye West. Anybody like Kanye West?
I like that album.
Okay. You look pretty. But what I want. You look like you've got good taste in music, I guess. I don't know. How does someone look like they've got good taste in music? Yeah, could be. So, yeah. So I think that basically the whole comedy is sort of an apology for a rape. It's like in a memorable line in the, I believe it was 1990 Texas gubernatorial race. The candidate. Anybody know what I'm referring to here? The candidate shot himself out of the running, and I think managed to get a Democrat elected as Texas governor, which is almost unheard of, because he said, when asked about the rape laws, that it's like the weather. If you can't change it, you should just sit back and enjoy it. Right? And he still barely lost, but you know how these things go. I kind of feel like this is Theseus, like yeah, so it's just so it's got this, and I mean, we'll see, there's just particularly, Helena is so screwed up. I mean, Hermia is just kind of like a Juliet type, just like just wants to die in the arms of a lover, but and then the all of the wife swapping and the setting your wife to have, it's anywho, but this is actually paradoxically why we're gonna read some really dark readings of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I don't think that's right either. Because I think that what you're supposed to do is like be in a high happy key about it.
Well, it's too ridiculous to take seriously.
Perhaps. All right, so now we either have to go through just as many note cards as we just did, still on the first act. Or we can put the movie on and take just of the first act, and then have 4 whole minutes. We'll talk about if they got it right or not. I want you to go along the dialogue so you can see how they massacre it. To put too fine a point upon it.
Just for egress here, can I go behind you?
Yeah. Whoa. All right. Yeah. Really?
Sit back and enjoy the weather.
Alright, we're going to have to go full dark because I can't figure out how to do it. Come on, man, hurry up. So anyway, now we know the general landscape of the play just from that first part. And so we've got the different levels. So we've got the matter of state, and then we've got the kind of romantic comedy of the and then we've got the deep sort of psychological play of desire going on in Fairyland. Is this thing on? So front dimming knob, that should do something though.
Oh, it's doing that.
It's doing that.
Screen is on.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can get some volume too. I don't know where the volume is. It would be right here. All right. I don't hear anything. Do you hear anything?
No, I finished it too long ago, actually. I missed one of those. I should have read that early.
Maybe this one?
I think I played earlier.
Get married. Is that about it? Nothing else? Okay. We'll slow down just a smudge. I think probably we're not paying enough attention. All right. So one of the things going on is the he can't wait. So this brings off the theme or concept of time. I'll write that on the board because it's important. All right. So he's proposing a very specific concept of time. Let's look at it again. Read to ourselves. And our nuptial hour draws on apace. So what's the first word? Now. So that's sort of so there's something called a now. Right here. Call this now. And then there's something else, right? What's the thing that the sort of in that first sentence that balances out the now, that he can contrast with the now?
Hour?
One more word to it though. Nuptial hour. All right, and then so this is what we have in between. All right, so this is a very specific sort of concept of time. Does anyone? I keep asking this, but has anyone ever been a kid?
No.
Okay. When I was a kid, I remember when I was in car rides, there was something called Now, and then there was the mythical end of the journey, and it was interminable. I mean, I think that kids actually experience time different, because I just remember like being in a car forever, and it was like 15 minutes. Also, that sodas were huge. But, so there's different ways of approaching time. So now I think that I'm just kind of, like it's less punctuated in my nice fun light comedy, lots of rhymes. It's a pretty quick read. I mean, if you have to read one of these plays all in one, yeah.
Is there a certain way that we should read Shakespeare to ourselves?
Well, I mean, it's
in order to keep up with all the characters and kind of imagine it, or hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to give you scaffolding for it. That's why I'm not just throwing you the play. That's why we're talking about it first, so you can kind of get an idea, and then we'll go through it now, and hopefully, as you ideally, that you will be learning how to read more clearly. The first thing that you have to do, and this is the big thing that we're going to hit on today, is slow down. It's very, every line is packed, and that's why it was kind of it was underhanded of me to assign a whole play on the first play. That was, if you guys hate me, then that's okay. All right. So we'll just start with the opening lines. The opening lines. Yeah, they don't keep much company. Hermia's dream. Yeah, snake's what we're looking for. When Helena freaks out, oh spite, oh hell, that's she responding to.
Demetrius and Lysander professing.
Yeah, that's everybody else was that'll count, but that's the one which Demetrius professed his love for her, and that's how she responded. She's a complicated character. How does Pyramus and Thisbe end? Oh, they die. Yeah, okay. I guess that counts as suicide. What is Bottom's dream? Yeah, good play. Okay. So our anti-comic person down there, did you hate it? Okay, good. So just are we reading it as like with a couple of notable exceptions in Shakespeare plays are packed, very, very, very important as it turns out, and poorly footnoted in this case. Can I get a volunteer? I know I've got a lot of theater people in here, so I'm expecting some marvelous stuff here. I want someone to read Theseus's opening statement. Participation.
Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon, but oh, methinks, how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires, like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering out a young man's reverie.
Marvelous. Okay. So it seems like, what's the gist of this?
Can't wait to get married.
Can't wait to get married. Like, what's some things that we can say that we learn about Theseus? I'll put that one up. One is, can't wait